yourself, if that's okay. And it's what is the one intervention you would recommend to better prepare the energy system for the likely shocks it's likely to basically be impacted over the course of the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I think awareness is the number one, and then preparedness, and basically trying to have the organizational structure flexible and ready to respond to all those problems. That's kind of a general statement, but that's the best I can think of in terms of preparedness and so awareness, preparedness, and anticipating what could potentially happen and prepare for it.
Okay, thank you. Agnes?
Well, I would say that the climate change is an important issue, and it means we need to deal with it now because we are running out of the budget we can use for emitting CO2. So if we are going to manage and get the 2-degree scenario, we need to, in fact, take decisions now and get out of the short-termism thinking and also the being afraid of taking these decisions, which are sometimes hard to take, but has to be taken.
Very good. Madam Under Secretary.
Considering the rapid changes we are encountering nowadays, I think it's good for us to know or identify the new normal, and then we should plan and prepare for the new normal. And in these approaches, I think we should always be proactive in our approaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Tor?
Yeah, I think climate change is high on the agenda, and I think a more aggressive approach to remodeling our energy systems and the market mechanisms and everything to quicker phase in the renewables, I think that's a very important aspect. But I'd like to just mention one more thing as well. We haven't talked much about it, but to hit the 2-degree target, I think the whole industry needs to also be more aggressive on energy conservation. We haven't talked about it at all, but it's what we produce and it's what we consume. And they are linked together. So if we can consume less, we can actually also reach our goals better.
Sure. May I comment? Yeah, the picture I showed, there is a lot of energy efficiency to reach that. That is much less energy consumption in the 2-degree scenario I showed than today.
Yes.
Energy efficiency is everywhere.
Okay.
I see we have 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so I'm going to be a little provocative. And we haven't been provocative enough on this panel. And we talk about renewable and energy efficiency and all sorts of ways of decarbonizing our energy sector and the economies. One thing that we haven't talked about, and you rarely talk about that in most of the discussions, is consumption, wasteful consumption. We are consuming way beyond what is sustainable. We are over-consuming. And it's a dilemma that when we can afford, we overconsume, and those who can't afford, they go to dirtier fuels and they use dirtier sources of energy. And that is where we are caught. And therefore, unless we can reduce our consumption, and I'm saying we can do that without reducing the derived benefits. It's not energy efficiency. You can have a very efficient SUV, and you can have one person sitting in that. You can go from 30 miles to 35 miles per gallon. But if on the Washington Beltway, you have a train of SUVs on the Beltway, having one person each sitting in the SUV, no matter how efficient you make it, you're not going to be able to reduce consumption. So if an Indian is consuming 700 kilowatt hours per year, China is consuming 3,000 kilowatt hours, and US is consuming 12,000 kilowatt hours, every Indian, every Chinese, every African wants to be an American. And you can't afford to do that. What I mean is not American, what I mean is the very wasteful consumption intensive lifestyle. And that is something which is a behavioral change, and that would not happen, and that would not happen very fast because of the one reason, and that is that the poor are too poor and they cannot afford to change, while rich are too rich and they can afford not to change. So one cannot afford to change and the other can afford not to change, and that's a dilemma we are not talking about.
Tor, you want to say something?
Can I just make a quick observation to support that? Just before coming here, I checked what I pay for electricity. And the current price in Norway was 2 cents per kilowatt hour if I exclude the transmission cost. You know, so what incentive is there actually to save?
None. Okay. Very good. Well, panel, thank you very much indeed for your time over the course of the last hour. We've had the opportunity to examine from the different panelists the different components and issues associated with energy resiliency. And that's taken us on a tour in the context of the recognition that energy policy and policy makers, as Madam Undersecretary highlighted, need to be proactive in the way that they think about resiliency, need to be proactive in the way that they think about our responses to major events that will happen as we go forward. We've heard also that actually fundamentally underneath our energy system is obviously the major decarbonization of the system that needs to take place, the issues associated with climate change that have been talked about, and therefore there are choices and options available to ensure that our system is more resilient as we go forward. They can be resilient in the context of microgrids, which have emerged as a major contributor to thinking about the way in which energy systems can emerge as we go forward, and they can emerge in the context of choices that we have that will include nuclear in a way that we can think about our energy system as we go forward. In addition to that, we've also highlighted the issue of pricing resiliency into the way we think about investment. Amanda, you talked about the enormous amount of investment that's required in our energy system, and Aaron, you talked about it as well in terms of pricing resiliency in will be a critical signal in terms of the way we think about this, and there will be challenges, I would suggest, to that as we go forward. And then I think finally, there is the whole issue about educating the consumer. We talked about consumption, but we also, in that context, need to be educating the consumer about the issues of resiliency, and therefore why energy efficiency or why pricing needs to be a stimulant to behavior as we go forward is a critical component for us to consider as we go forward. So I'd like for everyone here just to put your hands together and thank the panel. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm sure we, in turn, the panel, would like to thank you for listening to us over the course of the last hour. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this, of course, was the final panel. We'd like to invite you to have your photographs taken as well. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we've come to the end of the Singapore Energy Summit 2015. I certainly hope with all the views and the insights throughout the entire day, you found them very useful. And of course, again, we'd like to remind you to keep this in your calendars for next year. The summit will be from the 24th to the 28th of October in 2016. I'm sure we'll see all of you coming back again for the summit next year. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to also invite you to the Singapore Energy Story Showcase, which opens from tomorrow. From tomorrow, keep that in mind, at level 3 right here at the Marina Bay Sands. This evening, we'd like for all of you to join us at a very special networking session called the SG50 Jubilee Reception. And that, of course, you will already know by now, it's at the Special Arts and Science Museum. Now, doors will open at 6 p.m. in exactly 25 minutes from now. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you all for your presence right here at the summit. This is Ravi saying thank you. Have a great evening. And again, do join us at the Jubilee Reception. Good evening. Thank you.